All right, First Samuel chapter 2. Let's call this one He Exalts, because that literally comes out of the text of the chapter. But as we mentioned in chapter 1, let's subtitle it This Too Shall Pass, because for years I thought that phrase came out of the Bible, but it is Bible adjacent because it comes out of the life of Solomon. At least one of its origin stories does. But it's an origin story that is not necessarily told in the Bible. The version I was able to find today reads as follows, though. It's best known as coming from King Solomon, who reigned in Israel from 970 to 931 BCE. He was a wise man and was seeking knowledge on how to make a sad man happy and a happy man sad. He requested from his minister, Benaiah, to bring him a ring with these magical powers. Well, Benaiah searched and searched all over for this ring. Most likely the king knew that he would never find it, but Benaiah did not give up. He finally went into the slums of Jerusalem and found a craftsman who worked in metal. The craftsman turned to his grandfather with this odd request, who in turn went into his workshop and appeared with a ring. This gold ring that he brought out to the minister to present to the king had this phrase engraved on the inside of the ring: "This too shall pass." When presented to the king, he was dumbfounded. No one thought there could be such a thing that makes you stop in your path, reflect on the past, the present, and the future, and remind you that the state you are in is not going to last forever. So it seems to sum up so much of what is going on here in chapter 2 as Hannah is singing the song of Hannah after her sadness passed, recalling how she spent so many years as a barren wife, made fun of by the other wife, Peninnah, who had children. And so in the Song of Hannah, she is in many ways rejoicing in the ways that God can turn the tables on those who misuse their opportunities to basically just be a genuinely decent person. Because Peninnah had that opportunity, but she chose instead to use her privilege and her opportunity to make Hannah's life more miserable. Vice versa. Hannah, when given the opportunity to finally have her head lifted up, to not become arrogant. As a matter of fact, the song laments the future for those who, in pride, waste the opportunities that God has given them to genuinely be a blessing. And she's going to say in verses 7 through 9 of this chapter, "The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and he exalts. He raises up the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap to make them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of his faithful ones, but the wicked shall be cut off in darkness, for not by might shall a man prevail." And that is so similar to something we'll see David later on in Psalm 34. He's going to say something similar beginning in verse 17, where it says, "When the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears, and he delivers them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers them out of them all." And when he says the Lord delivers, it's very similar to what Hannah said when she simply says he exalts. But understand, she's not simply talking about herself, because her next generation, her son Samuel, the one that she gives over to the service of the Lord, is going to show the way that God will do exactly what they're saying. Take someone who will make the most of the opportunities that God gives them and use them to improve on a situation, understanding that there's a contrast in the rest of this chapter. I'm going to hear about Hophni and Phinehas, Eli's two sons, who used their opportunity as priests to simply indulge their privilege. And because of the fact that their indulgence goes over into some absurd conduct, God is going to simply remove them from the priesthood. So understand how we're seeing in two generations how Peninnah is essentially replaced by Hannah, and likewise Hophni and Phinehas, two people who squandered their opportunity on self-indulgence, are going to be replaced by Samuel, who simply spends his early years going about the business of getting the work of ministry done. Reminding you, as we often say, God's best to you as you go forward in the new year. God willing, being a genuinely decent person, understanding that whether or not life has brought you into a high or a low, this too shall pass. And the thing that tends to remain is your legacy, which is why we often say God's best to you as you go forward in him. God willing, making the most of the opportunities that he gives you in the days ahead.